We live in an era where creating social media content is necessary for everyone's life. But as the number of social media users increases, it is becoming more difficult for businesses to stand out. Start creating attractive content that your target market will appreciate. This will positively affect your number of visitors, bounce rates, and conversions. Tune in to the Dominate Your Market podcast as Joe Pulizzi shares how businesses should create content to maximize their company's growth.
I want to welcome you to the Dominate Your Market podcast, where we interview leaders, CEOs, founders, and high-impact business development professionals to get their insights on how you can grow your business efficiently, build an amazing company, and still have a life. Today's guest is an exciting one. Joe Pulizzi is the founder of multiple startups, including the content creator education site, The Tilt, which I want to hear more about, the content entrepreneur event, Creator Economy Expo, and is the best-selling author of 7 books, including Content Inc. and Epic Content Marketing, which was named a must-read business book by Fortune magazine. Joe, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you.
Mike, thank you. I'm glad you used the shorter bio. Sometimes there's a longer one that people find, and I'm like, please don't read the whole thing. Nobody cares about it.
I'm telling you, I didn't have to do my research on you, because we'll talk about how connected I am with you from a long time ago. But yeah, your bio, the podcast, the this, the that, you sold this company, you did this. I mean, it's a lot. It is a lot. But for our listeners that don't know you, which is kind of shocking to me, maybe, I don't know if you've been under a rock or something. Can you give our listeners just a background of a little bit about you, where you came from and where you're at now?
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Been over 20 years in the content marketing industry, which wasn't a thing back in 2000 when I started in it. I left corporate America in 2007 to launch what became Content Marketing Institute. I really felt there was a big opportunity because the best way to sell, in my opinion, is not selling. It's by delivering valuable, relevant, compelling information on a regular basis to a targeted audience to monetize that audience. That's the definition of content marketing. Started Content Marketing World, which became the largest in-person event for content marketers. We hit 4,000 attendees in 2015, I believe. My wife and I exited that business in 2016. We still love CMI and Content Marketing World, nothing wrong with it, but we always wanted to sell and live our financial dream, if you will. So we sold that. I took a sabbatical year in 2018, one of the best years of my life. Took my dad to Sicily, had time with the kids because I'd been traveling all the time before that. I wrote a novel, The Will to Die, in 2019, which I call a marketing thriller. I'm still trying to create that category.
I'm gonna have to get that. That's
I
on
will
my
do
list.
that. Oh yeah, The Will to Die. And in our launch party was March 8th of 2020, which is an odd time. You're probably thinking, wow, what happened?
So everything that's a little interesting.
So everything shut down. So I'd written all business books up to that point, but I really was into this novel thing. And then we did the launch, and I don't know if I got a little bored, Mike, or whatever. And I got back into the business. I got into Web3 and tokens and cryptocurrencies, and I've tried to figure that out. And then got onto the content creator side and launched The Tilt at the beginning of 2021, newsletter specifically for content creators who want to build a full-time business out of this, so bloggers, podcasters, YouTubers, and then continued that on with an event for them. So we had 400 at Creator Economy Expo in Arizona in May, and we're going to do the same thing May of 2023 in Cleveland, Ohio. So it just kind of redoing the CMI, CMW model into this whole thing for content creators so they can be financially sustainable without having to focus on social media platforms. And I'm writing, I got 2 podcasts, like This Old Marketing and Content Inc. I've been doing those for 10 years. And just, the bio is long because I've been around long enough. It's really, Mike, that's how we've gotten here. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. I was almost kind of thinking, could you be anointed the godfather of content marketing for the internet? If not, I think I might anoint you that, because I want to tell a story. In 2000, I got goosebumps on this one, and I don't get goosebumps very often. But in 2001, I came across this guy, and I launched the world's first golf fitness membership website in the world. So I took fitness and golf, put it together, and there was nothing like it. And I thought, God dang, what do I do with this thing, right? I came across you and content marketing. I'm like, content marketing. Okay, golfers are rabid. They're rabid creatures seeking information all the time. Well, information is what? Content. Joe Pulizzi. Wait a minute. Should I do this thing? Launched it, took it to 7 figures in 3 years by myself, all because of literally, I bought your book. I literally read your blog post. I should probably send you a Christmas card for the rest of my life. No, seriously. And even today, it blows me. And I want to talk about this in just a couple of minutes, but it blows me away how the majority of companies still are not content marketing today in almost 2023. So, I mean, tell me, how do you see, we've both been around for 20 plus years now, so we're both old, but how do you see content marketing? How's it evolved in these last 20 years?
Well, first of all, congratulations on all your success. That was all you. But glad to be part of it. It was so in the early 2000s, you had to borrow other people's platforms for the most part. Social media was just getting started. People weren't using their email lists very smartly at the time. So you're still advertising in publications, online advertising started. We're still doing traditional public relations. Nothing wrong with those things, by the way. But as these channels opened up, Twitter and Facebook, and people did get smarter with their email, we realized that we could reach an audience on a regular basis. YouTube, Google, we want to be found in Google. And we're like, okay, well, we can reach audiences directly. We don't have to go through somebody else's channel. We can do it ourselves. And how do we do that? And so that's where you and I learned the process of how do you do that? You pick a platform. Is that a blog? Is it a newsletter? Is it a podcast? And you figure out, okay, what's your content tilt? That's your differentiation area. We talk about that in all my books, where how do you actually break through all the content clutter that's out there? And there's always been content clutter, but every niche you go into, there's content clutter. How do we want to break through that? And then you figure out, okay, I'm going to consistently deliver something. Is that a blog post? Is that a YouTube show? Is it an email newsletter? Kind of consistent basis. I always say, if you know the show Cheers, which you and I probably do, and you have Norm Peterson. Norm Peterson showed up every day at the Cheers bar. He showed up consistently, and he had something interesting to say. And that's simplistically, that's what we're talking about with content marketing. And you do that over a long period of time. You build your audience, and then you monetize that audience in multiple ways. And in Content Inc., my book from 15, and then I redid it in 21, I kind of lay out there's 7 steps to do this. But most of where companies go wrong, well, first of all, just back to your question, we can now reach our audiences. It is difficult to do that, but the patient win. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And most people quit for 2 reasons. Even though we can reach all these people, they don't have any differentiation. They don't have a content tilt. They sort of all over the place, or they're too broad. I always say you can't find it. You can't niche enough. You have to, like yours with golf and fitness, very niche. Probably nobody was doing it at the time, as you said. So great. You have something nobody else is doing. That's what we want to find. Nobody else is going to do that. And then the consistency part. I mean, for years, for a decade, I consulted with billion-dollar companies on the process of content marketing, and most of them failed because they looked at content creation as a campaign. They would do something around a product launch. They would launch a YouTube thing or a podcast or a blog for 6 to 9 months as part of the product launch, and then they would stop. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're building a group of people that know, like, and trust you because you're delivering something valuable to them, and then you stop. They'll never come back. Like, why? If you look at any great media company, as you know, they always deliver over a long period of time. Content marketing never stops. It is a marathon. And this is a muscle that most companies have never used before. It's atrophied in some way because we've grown up on the idea that we interrupt. We create media to interrupt in other people's channels, and that's how we've done it. And if it was 1975, great, go buy advertising. But today we can create our own channels. We've got a million little mini media companies that people can create, and everyone with a smartphone has the opportunity to do this. So that's why I'm so excited about what can happen today. But I'm also diligent to continue to teach this because so many people do it wrong, and they think of TikTok millionaires, which really don't exist.
Oh boy.
So they're like, oh, I'm gonna build my audience as quickly as possible and monetize it and do the thing well. Yes, maybe 0.1% of the time that's possible, but most of us, our research at the Tilt tells us it takes about 17 months to break even, about 25 months to really build a sustainable business. So that's the research. We've been doing that research for 2 years now, and that's been consistent. So that's why I like to tell everybody, look, if you're going to do this for 6 to 9 months, like go do something else. Like you got to do my wife called them the ramen noodle and bologna years, because you have to cut expenses to such a point, because all you're doing is building audience, and then hopefully in 12 to 15 months you can start to monetize, and hopefully in 17 to 20 months you can break even, and hopefully after that 2 years plus you can actually be profitable. So
you know what's interesting, I've talked to hundreds of CEOs, that's who I work with, but of all of them, when I do the competitive research for them, a lot of their competing companies do not have content. The content is horrible on their website. It's all me content.
Yep.
No value at all. And it's interesting because when I talk to everybody, I think in 2022, you still could win the game if you implement a content strategy, like you said, and be consistent with it, because so many companies are not doing it at all, which is shocking to me.
Or they're doing it very poorly, to your point,
Yes.
which I think is happening for the most part. I think if you go talk to most organizations, small, medium size, even, they've heard of content marketing. They're doing blogs. They're doing a web content in some way. They're dabbling in podcasts. I call it content run amok. So if you look at the average company, and we Content Marketing Institute did some research last year on a large enterprise, but it still fits for any size. A large enterprise distributes content 13 to 16 different ways: webinars, Facebook, Twitter, in-person events, research projects, blogs, podcasts, whatever, 16. So it's a lot. So, but generally happens is we only have so much energy to do this kind of content marketing. So we become jack of all trades, master of none. So it's basically mediocre content everywhere, or really bad content, like you're saying on blogs, which I would agree with. It's all me oriented. It's really not targeting anything. You might as well not do it. So when we go in and we do audits with these companies, they usually expect me to come in and recommend, oh, you got to do more content. And it's always less. I always tell them to do less content. Take 7 or 8 of the things that you're doing that's making no impact on your customers or prospects at all, and kill that so you can move those resources over to 1 or 2 things and be amazing. Have the most amazing email newsletter so you can break through all that spam clutter and actually be something that people open. I talked to a marketer the other day. They have an email newsletter, and they were talking about their open rate, and they were concerned. And I said, well, what's your open rate? Between 2 and 5%. I said, you should be concerned. You're sending spam. And by the way, some people think 2 to 5% is good. So if you look at an industry newsletter, media newsletter, you're probably looking at a 17 to 20% average. And if you're looking at a really good newsletter, you want to be between 30 and 40%. So that's the type of thing that was really something that's wanted. And so that's what my recommendation to anyone listening to this is: look at all the stuff you're doing, do a cursory content audit. What's working, what's not? Are you putting a lot of energy into some things, and just shift it around and be great at 1 or 2 things? And that's a media model. If you look at the greatest media companies of all time, New York Times, Huffington Post, Red Bull Media House, whatever, they always start with one thing. They do that really well for a couple of years. They build their audience, and then they diversify. And believe it or not, even in the age of social media and now Web3, it still works the same.
Well, you know what's interesting? When you think of the different platforms, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn for that matter, we don't own the platform. And there's a couple of guys on YouTube that I follow that are irrelevant to business. But one guy got big very quickly, and he was very, very controversial in his topic. And he got banned off of all the platforms. And this dude, like, he was getting millions of views on YouTube. He was getting right? And the platforms, he said a few things that were a little iffy, and gone.
That's right.
Gone. And so that kind of goes back to what you said earlier, which was, have the content on your platform so you own it. And so, like, my website back in the day, and truly, I'll go back to you. You were a big part of what I did, really, because I kept leaning back on it. But back then on my website, I would think of what's a problem a golfer has. Oh, he slices the golf ball. I thought, okay, boom, that's a big one. So I wrote a 2,000 word web page back then in 2001, 2,000 words. I did 3 YouTube videos and I embedded 5 images in one article on my website. I had 30 of those on my website by the time it was all said and done, 30 like that, right? When it was all said and done, I was getting 30,000 unique visitors a month to my website back in 2003. I had gained 95,000 subscribers to my newsletter, and I could send an email out and sell a $20 to $100 product and make $20,000 in a day. Back then, right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
All from what? The content. And that's what, and I don't say that to brag. I say that to where this is how critical content is. And with company websites, frequently asked questions. Answer all the questions that people give you on the website. So let the website do most of the work, right? I mean, it's crazy.
So I love your focus on own platforms. And a lot of people today might say, but my opportunity is on YouTube and TikTok. By the way, I have no problem with rented, I call it rented land, as you do.
Sure.
So, and you can use rented land, but you have to remember, to your point, that tomorrow they may change the rules. They may take away your access, like you talked about. I think, I know the example you're talking about with that person. It happens all the time. People get blocked from Twitter. Who knows what's going on with Twitter right now with Elon Musk?
Boy.
Like, we don't know anything. Zuckerberg's changing all the algorithms for Instagram. So we are beholden to that distribution policy, that content policy, that data policy, and we don't have to be. So that's great. They're private companies. Leverage them however we can, if that makes sense, but always have a way where people can get back to something that you control. Is that your blog? Maybe it's your podcast, it's your e-newsletter. That's why I'm a big fan of email newsletters. Now you've got a lot of creators that are trying to figure out NFTs, all good things that you can control, things that you can do. But a lot of people forget that. And if you have a big following on, let's just say YouTube for whatever, let's say you have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Those 100,000 subscribers are not yours. Those are YouTube's. Those are actually Google's subscribers, and you're renting them. And tomorrow those may be gone, or Google changes the algorithm and they won't let you see anything, and you'll not be part of their promotion, whatever the case is. And so that's where I tell people, it's like, absolutely use it, but have the positioning in your content strategy that tomorrow social media will be gone altogether. And if you do that, you're going to be okay.
That's great advice. There's a buzzword out there right now, and you're right in the middle of it. Creator economy. Like, I think a lot of CEOs that are in the trenches with their companies might not know what that means. Talk about creator economy a little bit.
So the creator economy is a lot of people talk about it with all the software and tech companies that are targeting individual creators. I don't want to look at that at all. The heart and soul of the creator economy is the creator, is the content creator. And these are people that what I call content entrepreneurs. They're trying to build audiences and monetize those audiences as a full-time business. To normal people, those look like full-time bloggers, podcasters, newsletter writers, could be authors, consultants. Everywhere they're leading content first, and then they're driving revenue all sorts of different ways. You talked about an affiliate model. You're driving product sales. Some take donations. Some do in-person events like we do with our own Creator Economy Expo. So this isn't, I don't know, you could look at a bunch of stats. I don't believe any of them. There's anywhere from 25 million to 75 million of these throughout the world. It could be more, it could be less. That's a lot. They're all over the place. They're next door. They're in their mom's basement. They're third career, 70 years old, trying to do this on Instagram. It doesn't matter what age. It's in every niche. And it's exciting because there's an actual opportunity to do this. But again, it just takes patience. And so if you think of creator economy, it's like, oh my God, whatever industry you're in, you have a ton of creators trying to target the same audience that you are. So the opportunity for any business owner, for any CEO listening to this, is you have the opportunity to not only partner with these people because they're looking for funding. Maybe you want to sponsor their stuff. Maybe you want to partner on a research report or a webinar. Maybe, which is what I talk about in a lot of my presentations, maybe you want to buy them because most of these creators are better at building audience than you are because they're doing it full time. It's just like if you never drove a car at all and you just want to get in, it's like, oh, I can do this. That's content marketing for most. It's like, I've never driven this car before. It's really weird. I just ran into off the side of the road. Well, you've got content creators out there that get in a car every day and they're professionals. So they know exactly what to do and how to get to their place as quickly as possible. So there's a lot of opportunities there. So the to-do would be start making a list of the podcasters, of the bloggers, of the newsletter writers that are targeting the same audience you are. Simple Google searches, do some word of mouth, talk to your own customers. What do they listen to? Like I do that all the time. I want to talk to our audience and say, what podcasts are you listening to? What blogs do you go? What newsletters do you go to for your information? Because those people I want to partner with in some way. They're doing something right. We're all on the same team here together, co-opetition, whatever you want to call it. And there's a lot of opportunity there. So that's where this industry wasn't around before. It was very small because it was so hard to make a living. And now it's not anymore. And you can build an audience. And thus it does give an opportunity to a lot of companies that aren't used to creating content because you can reach your audience through them.
You know what it almost makes me think of, and I think of a couple of clients right off the top of my head too, that in a dream world, a company would have a content creator in the company, right? If you like that would be a dream world where like somebody like really that's what they do, that full-time content creator, and they're getting on the platforms where all their ideal prospects are sitting and using. But that would be kind of a cool thing to think of. How could a company either create a content creator within the team they already have, or possibly I don't think a lot of CEOs would value it enough to put a salary on it. Maybe, I don't know, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Where how could a company? Because I think that would be brilliant if every freaking company had a content creator literally in the company.
I would say that most innovative companies already do and have multiple. Wow. Yeah, I mean it's rampant. I mean most of the most larger companies have content and marketing divisions, and with those content marketing divisions, they have editors, content creators, bloggers, podcasters. Wow. I mean, look at Red Bull Media House. I mean, they have Aero Electronics, which is a Fortune 119 company, $34 billion in revenue last year. They've got 600 people in their media division.
Oh my God.
Including engineers that are creating content full-time, writers, editors, whatever. So this is already happening. So if you're listening to this and you don't realize it's happening, it is happening. I'll give you a smaller company example. Indium Manufacturing in New York. They manufacture industrial soldering equipment. They started a blog newsletter back years ago called From One Engineer to Another. And their goal was, to your point about answering questions, their goal was to answer every soldering question that engineers could possibly ask. And well, who could do that? Well, they had 27 engineers on their staff that are the biggest experts in their industry. So, by the way, but not good writers. So they hired an editor to work with each of those 27 to extract the content. Some would write, do Q&A back and forth in emails. Some they would interview, some whatever, however you need to get that data. And lo and behold, after just a few years, it became their number one lead generation source, and still today. So go from one engineer to another on Indium's site, and you'll see it's nothing flashy, but you see 27 engineers on a somewhat regular basis. They're creating blog posts on this. So that's just one example. So you figure out, who's the expert in your organization? Like, what's your differentiation area? What do you want to stand for? What's your content area that you're talking about? And then you figure out how you're going to execute it. Having somebody internal is important. You can outsource a lot of this to a lot of writers and editors, but you have to have some people inside to champion the initiative.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of the companies I work with are kind of the $5 to $20 million range. So they're definitely on the smaller end, right? So they've 30 employees, 50 employees, 60 employees, and all those employees are grinding in their certain position. And so if I went to that CEO and said, hey, I want to, let's get a content creator, he'd be like, no, my people are busy. Like we don't have one. So in that situation, it would be a little bit more challenging, right? So I don't know what you would say to that smaller company.
Well, first of all, if you just say you got to create content, they're not going to know what you're talking about, right? So you have to focus on the problem. Like, what's the issue? Are we having a sales problem? Are we having a cost savings problem? Are we having a loyalty problem? Like, what is it? So let's say that you're trying to increase the yield from current customers or create better customers in some way. That's a great content marketing initiative. So you're saying, okay, we're going to target our current customers with a regular piece of content on a regular basis. What does that look like? Is it a newsletter? Is it a magazine? Is it a podcast? Whatever. And then we're going to measure that over time. Well, if you said, hey, what if we launch this? It's a hypothesis. We don't know. The marketing is all a hypothesis until we execute it. And you're saying, what if we go out to these 10,000 customers or 1,000 customers, whatever we have, and we saw a 5% increase in their revenue or a 5% decrease in turnover, whatever the case is, whatever the goal is, then you go ahead and follow that. If you talk to a CEO about that and you say, hey, what if we got 5 to 10% or 20% more from our customers? Wouldn't that be great? Yes. Well, how do we do that? Well, here's the idea. It's through content creation. And it's a really good example from TD Ameritrade. TD Ameritrade launched a magazine called Think Money. They actually purchased the magazine called Think Money, and they sent it out to very active traders, their current customers who are already trading. And what they found out is those traders that actually got and read the magazine traded 5 times more than those that didn't. So when you go to the CEO and say, hey, what if we saw a 500% increase in activity from our customers because of a magazine or whatever? That's what we're talking about here. So in a lot of cases, when we're talking about blog and podcast, a lot of us think about, we're talking about awareness or lead generation and getting new products. And that's great. That's a goal, but also loyalty. That's the OG content marketing goal, was always around loyalty. That's why it started with magazines. Lego launched Brick Kicks. If you have a Mazda or a Ford, you probably get their magazine. That's a loyalty initiative. That's content marketing. Same thing. Salesforce has an event called Dreamforce. HubSpot has an event called Inbound. So these companies are doing it all over the place. But I would say, if you're talking to a CEO, focus on big problems, big strategies, and then how do you solve those? Is it better to solve those through building your own audience and becoming a trusted, loyal advocate for your industry, or is it to interrupt them through advertising? Well, you have to make the choice. So
that's awesome. That is awesome. I appreciate that. I think that one right there is a good one for the smaller companies to hear what you just said. Now, you mentioned content tilt. Talk about that a little bit, because see, I know a lot about content because I'm doing a long time, and I'm thinking content tilt. I've never heard that. So this is all new to me.
Sure. Yeah. So content tilt, man, I've been talking about that for 10 years. So what happens is everyone starts with their sweet spot. So if you're going to launch a content marketing initiative in any way, you're like, okay, there's 2 parts of the sweet spot. One is, what is your expertise as a company that you can actually create content around? So what's your knowledge and skill area that you know better than anyone else? And you list all those things. Like Indian, for example, in soldering, they know everything about soldering. They can answer all the questions. They know all the specs around it. Great. And then on the other side, who's the audience you're targeting? And this is really important for B2B CEOs out there, executives, because you have 6 to 8 to 9 personas that you're targeting probably for your different products and services. You're in many divisions, whatever. You have to choose one. If you go broad and you're trying to target all 6 to 9 at the same time, you're too watered down. There's no way you can make it relevant enough. So you target one audience and you figure out what their pain points are. What keeps them up at night? How are you going to help them live a better life or get a better job? And it's the intersection of those that creates some kind of a mission statement. Like for example, with the tilt, like we're targeting content creators that want to be content entrepreneurs, and we're delivering them content twice a week in the form of an email newsletter that gives them business tips on how to grow their business through content outside of social networks. That's our mission statement. Okay, you say, okay, well, you have to look at that and you say, well, is that enough? And it usually isn't. So we need to take it a little bit deeper into the content tilt. I did a presentation the other day, and I did an analysis of companies that were creating content around cloud computing. And of course, everybody knows about cloud computing. And if you type in cloud computing, you'll see content from Amazon and IBM and SAP and Oracle. They're all, and you know what? They all talk about it in the exact same way. None of them have a content tilt. They're just talking about cloud computing for tech business people, all in the same way. Yeah, it's all the same way. So how do you talk about it in a different way? Maybe you're going to talk about it from a financial advisor standpoint that makes it different. Maybe you're going to talk about it and you're targeting only plant managers who need to know about cloud computing that outsource products to India and China that are greater than 10,000 employees. I don't know. I'm making this stuff up. Doesn't matter.
Good.
But the point is that you want to get as focused a niche as possible so that when you create content to that target audience with that content niche, you can actually be the leading expert in that area. So the litmus test is, if you create your mission, you say, here's what we're going to create content around to this particular audience. And if I ask you, okay, if you do the work, if you do the blog post or do the podcast or do the whatever your platform is, can you be the leading informational expert in that industry? And you laugh at it. You're like, oh, no, we couldn't. Well, you're not niche enough. Then you go down a little bit more and down a little bit more until you said, if you do the work, there's only 3 to 5 players in this industry and we can be the leader. That's what you want to focus on. So what I like to see small companies do in that, 5 million to 30 million area is folks start with 1 or 2 of these areas that you can be the leading expert. And what it ends up looking like is if you do it really well, you cover 6 to 9 of these niches and it grows into something amazing, and it does all the marketing for you in the next 3 to 5 years. So that's the content tilt. It's that area of differentiation. It's different enough that you can break through all the clutter that's out there and people will take notice, so you can build an audience.
That's so interesting, because when you think about content, I don't know how many pages Google indexes every single day. It's in the billions or something like that, right? It's a lot.
Sure.
So when you think of content, there's a lot out there. So I think you're right. You have to go so tight with it to really own that little section right there, that you can become the leader. Where I think a lot, like you said, a lot of CEOs or company leaders would look at it and say, no, we can't do that. I've got clients that are in manufacturing and construction, and they're like, no, we'd be going against these billion-dollar companies. Well, then, like you said, keep going tighter and tighter. That's awesome. Joe, I know you're busy. I don't want to take up a lot more of your time, but two last questions. Number one, so outside of the yellow book that you have in your bag that you're going to be reading,
that's right.
that one right there. What is a recent book you've read that you feel is just a really profound book? And all your books, by the way, and we'll put show notes to everything. What's a book that you feel recently you've read that's like, wow, this was a good book?
Well, Ann Handley just came out with her second edition to Everybody Writes, and it's a great book for anybody to understand what it takes to write compelling stories in whatever industry you're in. So if you're at a company and you don't feel like you can do this very well, Ann Handley has a really good, and she just came out with the new edition. I highly recommend it. Ann's a wonderful person. And the first book was a Wall Street Journal bestseller, and I'm sure this one will be the same.
What's the title of the book?
It's called Everybody Writes, second edition.
Everybody Writes. She's been around forever as well.
Yeah, we all don't tell her that. Yeah, we've all been around quite a bit now, it seems. But so that's the one most recently that I would say that has helped. And then I'm trying to think of another one. Right, I would stick with that one for now, because you'll have your hands full with just that one and go in and figure that out as you go.
So with all the exciting things you have going on, and I'm so glad when you exited CMI, you're still in the mix, because I think you provide an immense amount of value. So it's cool that you kind of pivoted and you're doing your thing, and it's still kind of all centered around content, but now it's creators. But for any of our listeners that want to find out more about any of your stuff, please, website URLs, just can you give it to us now?
Thank you. Sure. Yeah. So I would just say, if you want to learn about this and become better at it, go to thetilt.com, subscribe to our newsletter. You'll get it twice a week. If it's not valuable, you can unsubscribe. I really do believe that you'll think it's valuable. We've got 17,000 people on the list right now, and we're trying to help on a regular basis. And then we have our event, Creator Economy Expo, which basically takes what we talk about in the Tilt, and we bring the leading experts from around the world to talk about it. That's cex.events. I'm at Joe Pulizzi, Pulizzi, and you can find me on Twitter. So shoot me a shout out, or LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. And I continue to post about this stuff all the time. And then I would just say, our nonprofit, Orange Effect Foundation, is something near and dear to my heart. We send speech therapy funds to kids and families who can't afford it. We've been doing it since 2014. We've got grants out to kids in 35 states now. And that's the orangeeffect.org. And if autism and speech therapy are near and dear to your heart, and you want to help some people out, you can check us out at the orangeeffect.org.
I have 2 autistic nephews.
So, yeah, I mean, it's the thing, as we target people that know. If you have my oldest is on the spectrum. So, and if he didn't get the speech therapy from ages 2 to 8, I mean, so my oldest is in college right now, doing great. And it's because of that speech therapy. So we take that story out, and believe it or not, insurance doesn't cover a lot of this for some, and some people don't have insurance. And for a child to need speech therapy when the family has to get food on the table and dinner, I totally get that. You have to pay for those expenses, but every kid needs to have that. And that will, so they can be as normal as they want to be, or not normal as they want to be, whatever, but so they can communicate. And so that's what we do at Orange Effect.
That is so cool. We're going to have show notes to everything on a webpage, and we'll have URLs to all of that. Joe, thank you so much. I was, when I threw the invite out to you, I thought, I don't know, I'm going to throw it out there. We'll see. And you guys accepted, which I was so thankful. And I'm so appreciative that you took the time to get on the podcast today. And I'll promote the crap out of this because I'm a big believer in everything you do. So Joe, thank you once again.
Thank you. Well, congratulations on your success in the book. And I'm looking forward to going through it. So thanks, Mike. You got it.
You've just listened to the Dominate Your Market podcast with CEO, business consultant, and author Michael Peterson. Growth-minded CEOs hire Michael to explode their revenues, build an amazing company, and create a transformational mindset that encapsulates growth, success, and ultimately happiness. His book, Dominate Your Market, is creating quite a stir in the marketplace. Go to dominateyourmarketbook.com and get your first chapter free.